Hello there, everyone. Yes, it's very nice to be here. This is a webinar. It's called Introduction to Cross-Cultural Tools, and it's another one in the series for the Multilingual Families Club, which you can go and visit at multilingualclubs.eu. Yes, welcome. Thank you very much for joining me. Yeah, it should be an interesting webinar today. We're going on a journey down memory lane. It might seem a bit old-fashioned, but I assure you that it's very relevant. First, let me tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Tim Bridgman. I have a mixed background. I have spent a lot of time working in higher education in the past. I was working at a university for maybe 10 years before deciding to change and go into corporate training. So I've got both an academic and a business background. I then carried on in that area for a few years before finally changing to the area that I'm now working, and I'm working as an online freelance writer. In all these areas, the one thing in common was a multicultural and intercultural element in all of the jobs. At the university, I was teaching a lot of cultural studies. As a corporate trainer, I was an intercultural trainer, working with numerous big companies, teaching them how to manage international teams and so on. And then finally, as a freelance writer, I specialize in writing for websites and so on, where people are working across cultures. Perhaps, I don't know, a German company that wants to try to have a website in English language focused on Britain. That's sort of a typical example of the kind of work that I do there. So before we begin, just a little bit more about myself. I was born in the UK, but since 2000, on off, I've been in Poland. And a majority of my work, except for the online work that I've done, I have done in Poland. At home, what can I say? Well, yes, we are a multilingual family. My family is. My wife is Polish. My son is, well, that's a very good question. What's my son? He's bilingual, he's bicultural. Yeah, and we're going to wait to see what happens in the end there. But anyway, that's the subject for another discussion, and there's going to be a couple more webinars. So in one of the webinars, I will be talking much more about that. But now we need to get back to our subject, which is about this introduction to cross-cultural tools. Okay, so let's begin with what is intercultural or what is cross-cultural? Well, I guess it's easiest if I begin by saying what it's not. Well, in my opinion, what it's not. It's not just being a great communicator or being a great diplomat. You know, some people are able to talk to anyone from anywhere. If an alien came down to planet Earth and landed, they would be able to talk to them, okay? That is a skill. I very much respect that skill, but I don't consider that intercultural skills. Likewise, it's not just being a great linguist. Some interculturalists are magnificent linguists, others aren't. I don't really have much talent for language myself. So it's not just being able to learn a foreign language. Being able to learn a foreign language is learning you know, in many ways a system of structures of grammar, etc., etc. And these are strict rules, hard and fast rules, and intercultural skills are very different to that. in my opinion, intercultural skills is a subject in its own right. And yeah, it's a subject that has existed for 60 years, with many great scholars attempting to explain things in the clearest form possible. So yeah, what we're going to do today is, as I said, we're going to go down a little bit of a journey down memory lane, and we're going to have a crash course, an introduction on the main key cross-cultural theorists from the 1960s onwards. And we're going to be looking at their work very quickly, and we're also going to be looking at their models, okay, or in other words, their cross-cultural tools. Now, many of these, of course, is very different now to 60 years ago, and many of these are available in digital forms. Some of them are available online, but they didn't start off that way. And even though we're very much digitally orientated now, I still think there is a lot of value in understanding these things in their original forms. So that's what I thought it would be fun to do today. We're going to look at these original forms, and we're going to look at the archaic non-digital versions of their tools that originally existed. And yeah, the hope is that I'm going to give you explanation to 4 important people, 4 important models, 4 important cross-cultural tools. And then we're going to get to the end, and we're going to wrap it up, and we're going to think about application of these tools, if there still is relevancy of these tools within the setting of the Multilingual Family Club. And I think also a little bit of orientation towards children as well, because I myself have a 10-year-old son, and it's very interesting for me to think about the possibility of how I could get my son interested and understanding cross-cultural skills to help him with his future. Okay then, all right, so let's begin. And the first person that I would like to introduce you to is a US anthropologist whose name is Edward T. Hall, who was born in 1914, died in 2009. And if you bear with me for a second, I'm going to start screen sharing. One moment, please. I do apologize, this will take just 1 second. It's a new piece of software. All right, now hopefully this will be available. Yes, it is. Here we go. Many apologies for that. Okay, so here we go. It's a beautiful cover, isn't it? It's not a first edition. It was released 1 year after the first edition, but nevertheless it is a US edition. And yes, this is the book Beyond Culture by Edward T. Hall. I come from a humanities background, and I really must say that this book was the first book that really connected with myself into the world of intercultural skills. It's a very pleasant read, full of great ideas. It's kind of one of those crazy 70s books that very thought-provoking. And anyway, in many ways, this book, it set the scene for what was to come over the next 50, 60 years. And Edward Hall is like the godfather of this subject. Now, it's quite chaotic when you read it, when you dive into it. And it's, the subject hasn't been figured out yet. So don't expect everything in like one of these concise modern guides in the 50 pages of everything bullet pointed. It's not like that at all. You have to dig for your information within this book, but nevertheless the foundations are there, and it's fascinating. Okay, and what I'd like to do is I would like to start off just by reading you 3 pages from this book. I used to use it in my trainings all the time, and I think it's very valuable. So if you can be patient, I'd just like to start reading you something. Okay, now this is about something that Hall calls action chains. And I think this is like the real breakthrough that he made. Okay, now in this section, in the chapter Action Chains, what he starts doing is he starts talking about an experiment that he did on a university campus to explain how action chains work. So I'm just going to read out this section and it will all fall into place. Okay, so here we go. Courting in both man and animals is a series of interdependent action chains. In man, the chains are both explicit and implicit, but the later are more binding. Because of my interest in young people in our culture, I once decided to study the processes whereby young men and women get to know each other on a university campus. A single setting, the library, was selected for study because it was well known to be an area that students used to pick each other up. The library was ideally situated to the needs of the study, for there were places where one could observe the process without intruding on it. 2 students were assigned the task of observing on a regular schedule between 7 and 10 p.m. for a period of 6 weeks. At first they observed every night. Later, when the pattern had been recognized, they found that Monday and Tuesday were the most active nights, but regular checks were made at other times. Their report is summarized below. So if you don't understand it, he's researching the action chain of men and women picking up partners in the library at a university campus. First, boys preceded girls and staked out their territory, taking every other seat at study tables, leaving opposite seats open. As decoys, books on law, medicine, and business were spread out so that girls could ascertain boys' career interests. Second, 35 to 40 minutes after the boys were positioned, the girls would show up and make their selections. Third, within 15 to 45 minutes, one of the girls being seated, the boy would ask a question, make a comment on what she was studying, or ask to borrow something, a pencil, a piece of gum. The female would respond or comply and act pleasant, but no more. Fourth, in 45 minutes to an hour, a conversation was initiated by the female, which elicited information from the male. At that time, if the female closed her book, leaned back and stared at the male, he would ask her to go on a study break, where the second phase of getting acquainted began. The chain could be broken by either party at several points. However, in no case in which the female initiated the first encounter did the couple leave together, nor did this occur if the female failed to observe the 45 to 60 minutes period between encounters. Time is no mere convention. Much more transpired than has been recorded here, such as visual appraisal on the sly and unconscious syncing. What was interesting was that the same paradigm occurred over and over again, week after week, and if the chain was broken, one party would leave and start again. The next night, there were those who never caught on, both male and female. These unsuccessful ones constituted our controls. Elsewhere, my students and I have been investigating courtship in the United States, in Barbados, and among the Spanish Americans in New Mexico. As a result of these investigations, we have found that the steps in courtship once identified, are extraordinarily stable. Okay, so you get an idea about this. Beyond culture, hang on, I'll go back to the big screen. Yeah, beyond culture identified these all-important action chains, which show an agreed sequence that a culture establishes to achieve a goal. And not only that, they then started looking at different countries, and they found different countries had different sequences. And these sequences were incredibly rigid. And if you wanted to succeed, you had to stick to the sequence. Okay, so really that's the main thing, that's the breakthrough. And remember, Hall was an anthropologist, okay, and he was about studying society and behavior and people, and he comes up with these action chain patterns. Okay, but that's not all. There's a ton of interesting things in this book, and if I go back to sharing, sorry, there's a ton of interesting things in this book, and he touches on things, for example, such as high and low context, and he begins to build upon something which is going to be very important later on. Okay, now Hall carries on his experiments, his research, and the next thing that I want to show you by Hall is this book. Now this is Understanding Cultural Differences, Germans, French and Americans. And this book was published nearly 10 years later. It says on the inner pages that it's compiled from work from 1977 to 1987. Now, if we open it up and start browsing at the contents, we can see part 1, underlying structures of culture, fast and slow messages, high and low context, space, time, monochronic and polychronic time, and then past and future orientated countries. Okay, and then we've got a few things going on later on. So there's 2 very important jumps that have happened since the first book. Okay, in the first book, in Beyond Culture, this idea of high and low context communication, it was a chapter amongst other chapters. Okay, and suddenly 10 years later, it's moved on, and the way of understanding things is in binaries, in black and whites, fast or slow messages. Okay, monochronic or polychronic time. Okay, and the whole idea of putting in contrast to understand cultural difference has arisen. Okay, and the second thing that we should learn here is look at the way that it's structured: Germans, French and Americans. It's dealing with 3 different countries, and there's 3 sections on each country. And if we look at here, part 2, the Germans. And now we have German culture, German approach to time, German approach to space, the order of things, formality. Okay, and what we've got now, and here we go, German management, employee expectations, business etiquette. And this is the next thing that I really wanted to show to you and point out to you. Okay, that remember, Hall started off as an anthropologist. Okay, we've now moved out of just a social study, and we're now into a book that's more like a guidebook. Okay, and the first thing that we've noted is these binary opposites. Okay, high and low context communication, etc. And now what we've also noticed is, well, then also we had divided into countries, and now we've got the issue of business arising, and we have got the use and the application of this knowledge for business purposes. Okay, if we look at the next part, the French start off historical background, regionalism, French time. But we go on and we've now got French business, government and business, personal contacts, bureaucracies. And then the last chapter is on Americans, okay, which obviously Hall was American. So this last part for him was very easy. Now, that's all that I'm really going to say about Hall. The original book is very important, and now we've got this development. We've got these scales, high and low context. Okay, we've got dividing into countries, and we've now got the issue of business. Okay, but this is still very early. This is 87, and remember, there's no internet yet. If you want to learn any of this or do any of this, you've got to read these books, memorize it, and then try to go into your meetings with your knowledge to act with. So anyway, that is Hall, and we're going to move on to Hall onto our next person now. Okay, and our next person is Richard Lewis. Now, Richard Lewis is British, and on Wikipedia it says that he is a communications consultant. Now, really, Lewis is quite a character. He was born in 1930. He's now 90 years old, and he's still active. He's still flying around the world, or as far as I know he is, talking about his cross-cultural studies. Now, let me give you a little bit of background on Lewis. Lewis has done many things. His intercultural career began as far back as 1955, when he went abroad to Finland to open up the very first Berlitz in Finland. He then went off to a few other places, including Japan, to open up Berlitz. He claims to speak 11 languages, and for many years, I guess he was going around the world, becoming interested in cultures, becoming interested in languages, and building up his ideas, building up his theories. Now, in 1966, when Lewis is 66 years old, it's quite remarkable, okay, his book, When Cultures Collide, comes out. Now, When Cultures Collide is a really strange book. It's a very big book. It's many pages long, very complicated. It's kind of focused in various different ways, okay? But there are two things to really get out of this book, okay? And the screenshot that you can see in front of you is a book that was released 3 years later, Cross-Cultural Communication, A Visual Approach. And this is my favorite book, and this is a real rarity. This is a beauty. And intercultural trainers, they're all after owning a copy of this one, okay? And what's amazing about Lewis, in my opinion, is for the first time, he took cross-cultural skills in a visual direction, okay? And that's what we can see here with this visual approach. Now, this may seem a bit strange to you, but let me show you a couple of examples, okay? So here we go. He was in Finland for many years. He's written books about Finland. And what we've got here is Lewis's claim for the national communication pattern for Finland, okay? Now, we start on the left with word base, and this is a communication happening. And he claims that it progresses along at the start with minimal speech. As we know, the Finns are quite famous for being minimalist in their use of communication. So we start off with minimal speech, with quite a small, narrow word base. And then there's in the middle a section of miscomprehension. Okay, so what's going on there? And then we enter into summaries. Okay, the person summarizes what they're trying to say. And then at the end, it's very focused clarity. So, according to Lewis, that's what it's like to communicate with somebody in Finland. Okay, here we go. This will be fun. China. Word base, much bigger. Okay, so let's begin at the beginning. So you must remain polite, moralistic. There's a long preamble to get to know who you're talking to. Your talk has to be very weighted and it has to contain proposals. Okay, we can see it the whole time. Government or regional influences often affect progress. Okay, now, first orange part that we get to is resist. Okay, so you're introducing yourself, you get to know your partner, you give a very delicate proposal, there's some resistance. Okay, this reaction may be slow and drawn out, and negotiations may begin. Okay, and we've got calm or confrontational. I do apologize. Okay, and now we progress further. Tough talk, huge market card about the scale of the opportunity in China. And then may use silent tactic, may introduce last minute changes, and can finally, what we do is we harmonize without losing face, and we achieve clarity, but obviously nowhere near as focused as in Finland before. And finally, this one's for me, this is the UK one, word base. We start off quite small because we're going to have 5 to 10 minutes of small talk. How wonderful, 5 to 10 minutes of just chatting. Then casually introduce business. Okay, it's rude to do anything else. And then a reasonable proposal. Now we've got resistance, keep calm, coded speech, understatement. Okay, and at the bottom we've got don't rock the boat as the motto, and a deadlock. Now we've got the use of humor and vagueness, stalling. Oh, I'm not sure about that. Okay, and here we go, a recess. Okay, and a repackaging, and then we come back, summary of the points agreed, and we're getting very close to agreement, and let's make a decision at the next meeting. And clarity is actually less clear at the end. Yes, I can't help thinking of Boris Johnson and the Brexit negotiations. I guess the keeping calm and the coded speech is changing a little bit nowadays, but all the other elements are there. Okay, so yeah, this is what Lewis did that was great. He started putting these things in visual form. And here we go. This is a nice one for any Polish listeners at the moment. This is his picture of Polish management. Now, what we've got is we've got the Polish house. We've got external pressures pushing down on the Polish house. I guess that's internal pressures now on the Polish house with the change in politics. And then inside the Polish house, we have honor, revenge, grace, gallantry, dignity, fearlessness, which is national romanticism. Okay, so somehow we've got to navigate our way through the Polish house. And then if you can do that, you come out the other side of the Polish house in unity and head up towards opportunity, towards the sun, which they put is defined in Poland as mere survival. Okay, so I hope that entertains any Polish people. So anyway, yeah, that is the first thing that he did. And these are great, okay, because these are a different way to explain things. The internet has shown the world how important the visual element is in learning. And now we don't just have theory in a book, we actually have pictures that we can go by, that we can associate with, that we can remember also. So, the Finland one is very easy to remember. So anyway, that's one thing that Lewis did. And the second thing that Lewis did that I want to show you is this. Okay, it's the cultural types, the Lewis model. Okay, now let me start at the beginning here. Lewis decided that he did actually want to form a model, okay, something that people can pick up and use, something that you can have by the side of your desk to help you during phone calls or whatever. And he decided that he was going to make this simplified communications model. Now, this model, okay, for this he chose 3 categories, and they're communication categories. They're linear active, multi-active, and reactive. Okay, so let's just look at the classification of these for a bit. Linear active. Right, the first category. Linear active talks half the time. Multi-active talks most of the time. Reactive listens most of the time. Okay, now let's check out the next one. Linear active does one thing at a time. Multi-active does several things at a time. Reactive reacts to partner's action. Next one. Linear active plans ahead step by step. Multi-active plans ground outline only. Reactive is polite and indirect. Linear active partly conceals feelings. Multi-active displays feelings. Reactive conceals feelings. Okay, so you get the idea. He's created 3 categories that people can fit in: linear active, multi-active, or reactive. If you're linear active, you like things to be direct, clear, one step at a time, exact. If you're multi-active, you're more multi-skilling, you're good at juggling, you kind of do things by emotion more. If you're reactive, you base your actions on listening. There's a lot of politeness involved. It's non-confrontational. You're concealing your feelings. Okay, so here we go. Here is the Lewis model. And the great thing about this is how simple it is. Okay, now he's chosen 3 categories. Normally, we'll be looking at cultural dilemmas with 2 categories, but here's a 3 category. Okay, and you can see that he's put the countries around the edge of the triangle. Okay, each country, he's decided what are the 2 most important categories, and then he's put them along the scale, along the line that applies to it. So I was born in the UK, so if you look at the UK in the bottom left-hand corner, that's right next to linear active with a bit of reactiveness. 0 multi-activeness, unfortunately. Now, if we come over to the other country that I have a lot of knowledge on, Poland, look at that. That is on the linear active, multi-active scale. And it's right up there towards multi-active. Okay, and he's even color-coded it all. Look at this. Blue, cool, factual, decisive planners. Red, warm, emotional, loquacious, impulsive. Yellow, courteous, amiable, accommodating, compromiser, good listener. And if you look at the yellow, you've probably already guessed there's a lot of Asia there. There's China, Vietnam, Korea, Thailand, Japan. So anyway, this was my personal favorite model, and I developed ways of doing the test. I basically turned this into a questionnaire and got people to figure it out, to tick the boxes, and then I managed to put together a result for where a person would be within this scale. And before this presentation, and I like to do this, I don't know, every year or two just to find out where I am, I did it myself. And if I move my cursor, you should be able to see that. I came up on about 30% along the linear active multi-active scale. So round about Denmark or Ireland or Australia I am. So this is interesting because it shows you that my contact with Poland is pulling me away from my UK conventions, okay, in the direction of multi-active communication, okay. Unfortunately, at this stage, we don't have a reactive score included. We're only on we've gone back to a 2 category scale again. But the interesting thing is, I did this a couple of years ago, and I had my results from a while before. And my results from a couple of years before were, I was around Netherlands and Austria, Czech Republic. So, as you can see, with time, Poland has greater influence and pulls me away. Okay, so it's all very interesting. Right, but Lewis then started playing with his model. And have a look at this. Okay, this is another Lewis model. Okay, and this is all about trust. And look at this: multi-active, family only; reactive, trust in reciprocity and schoolmates; linear active, trust in institutions. Perhaps not anymore in Britain. Okay, and then you've got these strange ones in the middle, like Israel, compromise and fair deal, or India and Pakistan, trade groups. Okay, so he started now looking at trust. Okay, and here we've got another one, a definition of truth. Linear active, truth is scientific. Poland, truth is situational. Okay, multi-active, truth is negotiable. And then the Asia countries, truth is a dangerous concept. Okay, so he's playing around with this, but the thing that I want to show you is I want to show you this concept. Okay, now here we go. I also then went one stage further, and I decided, right, I'm not just going to be on one side. I actually want to have my proper position plotted, okay, where I would be in the center of this triangle. And as you can see here, you've got a load of dots, and these refer to people who filled in the questionnaire, and this is where their result positions them. Now, if you can see my cursor, you will see that I was by Australia, Denmark, okay, and then I was about a quarter inwards towards the reactive. Okay, so I was where I'm wiggling my cursor now. Okay, and yeah, so I would have been pretty much in the middle of those black dots. Now, what are these black dots? Okay, these black dots were results for people that worked at the World Bank. And Lewis took his model off to the World Bank and started working for them and started researching the cross-cultural abilities of people that work for the World Bank. Okay. Now, not surprisingly, as it's the World Bank, he found that there were many people that had good levels of intercultural skills or cross-cultural communication skills. And if we look on this next one, he invents this category, this middle category called mediators. Okay, now this is what I really remember off of Lewis. I remember his model and the goal of falling into the area in which you can claim to be a mediator. Okay, because this is a very special category. You're no longer culturally determined by your country. I'm no longer right next to linear active as a UK person. I've improved all my cross-cultural skills, and now I'm able to work as a mediator, which is a real skill in the modern world, okay, to work as a mediator. Okay, so that's what I wanted to tell you about with Lewis. What's the situation with Lewis? Well, again, Lewis happened before the internet really took off. He does have something on the internet. You can sign up for a very hefty fee to be able to access a digital version of this tool that you can use as a trainer or in companies. But also, quite interestingly, he does training camps. They're set in a very luxurious and expensive mansion somewhere in the south of England. You're away from a weekend. It costs an absolute fortune, and at the end of it, you get certified as a Lewis model practitioner. Okay, I really don't know how much time you spend doing this at this luxury hotel, but there we go. But that's what Lewis is about. Lewis has a reputation as a publisher. He's published many books. He's doing some business work, and he's also got these very luxury training retreats that you can go on. His revolutions were the visual element, in my opinion. First of all, visualizing Hall's action chains, which are the diagrams that I showed you at the beginning. And then we've got this lovely visual model. Okay, if you're working in some kind of cross-cultural job, taking phone calls from different countries, just keep a printout of this on your desk, and you pick up the phone from China, remind yourself. Pick up the phone from Finland, remind yourself. Okay, it's really great. It's so easy. Okay. Right. So the next person then. We've got 4 in total. And the next person that we're going to do is we're going to do Geert Hofstede. I won't attempt a correct Dutch pronunciation. Now, yeah, as you can gather, Hofstede is Dutch, born 1928, and he died this year in 2020. And he considers himself a social psychologist. Now, I'm not going to talk much about Hofstede. If you want to find out more about Hofstede, and in many ways he's the most important of everyone, please check out the Adam Bednarek webinar earlier on, because he went into Hofstede in detail, so I'm not going to do the same. Now, what to say about Hofstede really is, the key thing for Hofstede is he was the person that managed to get this subject really into social sciences. Okay, before with Hall, it was anthropology, and then with Lewis, it was kind of not really academic, it was culturalist or linguist or something. Okay, but now we've got somebody who's produced a piece of work that has managed to get accepted within the academic world as valid for basing research on. Now, I'll just talk a little bit about Hofstede's background to explain this. Okay, and he started his career in 1965 as a management trainer and manager of personnel research at IBM. Okay, he was working within an international computer company. Now, he became interested in culture as it was spreading across the different elements of the company in the different countries. And he started trying to understand this. And then he got access to something that really changed everything. And that was, he got access to IBM worldwide personal data on all the employees. Okay, suddenly he had materials to work with. Okay, and suddenly he was able to take the idea of these cultural dimensions like high and low context, and many other things that Adam Bednarek explains in his webinar. And he was actually able to start applying data to these and to get results that were able to be published and to be accepted in the academic world, even though he really was coming out of the business world. Okay. Now, the first book that he publishes is Culture's Consequences, International Differences in Work-Related Values, in 1983. But the book that's really important is the one in front of you, which is Cultures and Organizations, Softwares of the Mind, 1993. Okay, so bear in mind, 1 year after the internet. Okay, and this book, again, we've got the same problem with all of these tools. Okay, you cannot access these tools without paying. Okay, if you're a business and you want to be able to access his cultural tool, okay, you've got to go to cultureinworkplace.com, and there is a paid mobile application which is called I do apologize, I've forgotten, Culture Compass. There we go, Culture Compass. I did a load of research, I did a load of reverse engineering. I managed to pull this piece document together, okay, which is a very simplified version of the most important 5 cultural dimensions as used by Hofstede. And just to remind you, here we go, power distance, okay, and this is the distance between management and employees. Are you very close to them, or are you a million miles away from them? Individualism or collectivism? Do you work in a group as a team, or is it dog eat dog individual? Masculinity and femininity. Okay, he doesn't really use these terms correctly, but nevertheless he's introducing a concept of gender. Uncertainty avoidance. I used to very much like this one. And this was, you know, how worried are people about the future? How anxious are they? Because this is related into their need for rules and regulations. Okay, and then finally we've got this Confucian dynamism, which is related to your orientation, long or short term. Okay, and again, that's like a nod off to Asia, that one. Okay, so that was just a quick reminder. I'm not going to talk any more about that. What I'm going to talk about is I'm going to talk about how Hofstede, through being able to ground his research in facts and figures provided by IBM, got his work accepted by social sciences, and then all the different directions it went from then onwards. Here we go. Here's a book, Cross-Cultural Psychology, Masculinity and Femininity, the Taboo Dimension of National Cultures, Geert Hofstede and Associates. Okay, and just look at this, okay, the kind of stuff that cross-cultural tools are being applied to now. Here we go, part 1, Masculine Femininity as a National Characteristic. And the first paper, Masculine Femininity as Dimension of Culture, validating the masculinity femininity dimension on elites from 19 countries, femininity and subjective well-being, masculinity, femininity and consumer behavior. Here we go, part 2, Culture and Gender, the cultural construct of gender, masculine and femininity in the self and the ideal self description of university students in 14 countries, gender role, gaps, competitiveness and temperature. And part 3, culture, sexuality and religion. Look at it, we're really going for it now in all these different directions. And as you can see, what's happened is it's really gone off in an academic direction, this original tool that was made. And this is good, this is great. Academic research is very worthwhile. But the thing about academic research is it is very high level. and generally it is not meant for a lay reader. So what's happened, as often happens in academia, is things are getting more complicated, not simpler. Okay, and we're kind of going in the opposite direction to Lewis with his nice simple models and his drawings that we can remember. Now we're getting more and more complicated. Okay, and yeah, we're revealing some very important things through intercultural skills using the Hofstede tool, application on everything from religion to sexuality. Now, Hofstede retires in 1993. Okay, and yeah, this is the time that the internet begins. So we've got a strange situation here now with Hofstede retiring and yet the highest level resource going digital. And that's what we can really see, particularly over the last 10 years. Various uses of Hofstede, online, digital tools, variations of digital tools, all of them paid for, all of them for businesses. The best thing, there's a free part of the mobile app, but apart from that, it's all paid for only. And in many ways, it kind of feels like Hofstede kind of went off in a direction away from practical everyday use. In fact, even though I've spent a lot of time with Hofstede, and even though I should know Hofstede very well, over time, Hofstede always ends up slipping from my mind. And in the end, what I remember is this. Okay, this is something different. This is another version. Somebody made a different visual version of Hofstede. Okay, and again, we're back to having a handout that you can keep by your desk that you can use. And what this is the culture clusters or country clusters. And this has been done by a couple of people. And they've made their own versions of it. And this is what I remember. And this is what I use when I think about Hofstede. And what they've done here is they've divided it into 6 categories: contest, network, family, pyramid, solar system, and machine. Okay, and we've got little drawings here of a pyramid, a solar system. We can see in the solar system, supposedly Poland is a solar system country. So what are these? Okay, we can see below. Contest, the key characteristic is competition. Network, the key characteristic is consensus. So we've got Scandinavia in there. Family, the key concept is loyalty and hierarchy. So there's lots of China and Asia. Pyramid, we've got loyalty, hierarchy, and implicit order. We've got South America, and we've got a few other places like Turkey and Thailand and Mexico. Solar system, hierarchy, and ideally impersonal bureaucracy. Spain, Belgium, France, Italy, Switzerland. These are quite sort of multicultural countries. And then finally, machine, which is order, which is Germanic countries. And if you look beneath there, you've got, for example, contest is competition, which is low power distance, high individuality, low uncertainty avoidance, and high masculinity. So what it's done is it's looked at these complicated Lewis categories and it's made groups out of them. And now we're not working with a ton of cultural dilemmas. If we can remember 6 pictures and then quickly remind ourselves where the countries fit into it, it's as simple as the Lewis model. Okay, and here we go, even simpler. Family, China. Pyramid of people, Russia. Well-oiled, Austria, Germany. Network, is Sweden. Solar system, France, Poland. Contest, UK or USA. Okay. And yeah, this system, I like this system very much. It's very usable. Okay. And here's a couple of ways to use it. Here we have motivators. What motivates the different people in the different categories? Contest, career and earnings, public praise, challenging targets, increase of status, successful boss. Okay, machine, boss is an expert, sufficient structure by rules, know-how and formality. Here we go, demotivators, contest, loss of self-respect, not recognized for the good work done, being a loser, rigid job descriptions. Okay, so this is really good. You know, we can find out what category people fall into as a country, and then we can look at what motivates them and demotivates them. And again, it's held on a very simple level, just like the Lewis and how Lewis looked at trust. Okay. And then finally, here's just something I put together myself. Here we go, lovely picture. Relationship, informal relationships and friendships. China, India, and then we've got your power distance high. Okay, so this is the handout. This is what you keep by your desk to help you. So I've got my Lewis model next to me, and now I've got my culture clusters model next to me as well. Okay, so I'm going to call it a day on Hofstede there, and we're going to go to the last person, which is Fonz Trompenaars, born 1953, from Netherlands. Now, Trompenaars is an organizational theorist and management consultant. Now, what to say about Trompenaars? He's got a model just like Hofstede, based on cultural dimensions. That's what Riding the Waves of Culture is about. In other words, it's Hofstede, but more targeted into business. Now, this is because his background is in business. Trompenaars began work for Royal Dutch Shell in 1981. He released the first edition of this book, Riding the Waves of Culture, in 1997. 1990, and then he begins his career at Royal Dutch Shell in 1981. In 1989, he then sets up his own consultancy firm, and the firm is called the Centre for International Business Studies, which he sets up with Charles Hampton Turner. Right, now we're back to where I wanted to be. 1997, 8 years later, he releases this book, Riding the Waves of Culture. Okay. The book is a big hit. It's a big hit because it's very readable. He's a great presenter. He's a good writer. He's lots of fun, Trompenaars. Okay. The following year, Trompenaars' consultancy firm bought by KPMG in 1998. Okay. And from that moment onwards, anything really related to Trompenaars, if you want to get your hands on it, you got to go through KPMG. So, for example, digital tools to be able to do his cultural dilemmas and to culture profile yourself. You have to be a business registered to access this through KPMG. Very expensive. Okay, I've never been able to get into to do it. I once managed to see unofficially a version of it behind the scenes when they didn't realize it was available online. And I told all of the intercultural skills community about it. We all jumped in, we all had a look at it, and a week later, boom, it was gone, locked away again. So that's all that I've seen about it. Okay. So yeah, Trompenaars, definitely. He's this business background, you know, intercultural skills. There's nothing academic here. It's all about for business. Okay. Now, Trompenaars, we've got a new picture up here, okay? And this is to give you an idea of the style of Trompenaars, because Trompenaars has been very good at self-publicity, and he's probably a very wealthy man. And the reason for this is the way that he approached intercultural skills. And instead of from a dry perspective or an academic perspective, he did it completely different, okay? And he made it fun. And here we have the accident dilemma, okay? Now, this is one of Trompenaars' cultural dimensions, which is no longer a cultural dimension, male, female, high, low context, okay? Now we're talking ethical dilemmas. So we're turning things into stories. Now, here we go. There has been an accident, okay? Now, the accident happened because you were driving a car down a road with a speed limit of 50 miles per hour, sorry, of 30 miles per hour, and you were driving 50, okay? You accidentally hit a pedestrian. It's not fatal. They will survive. Hospital, broken leg. That's about it, okay? But that brings us to our cultural dilemma. What right does your friend have? My friend has a definite right as a friend to... Oh, sorry, I explained this a little bit wrong. You're not the driver. Your friend is the driver. You are the passenger, okay? So your friend is driving at 50 miles an hour down a road. That's a 30 mile an hour limit, has hit somebody, and now it's going to go to court, okay? And the big question is, what right does your friend have to ask you to lie for them? And here we go. My friend has a definite right as a friend to expect me to testify that he was driving at a slower speed, okay? Your friend is asking you to testify that you were not driving at 50, that you were driving at 30, and you're the only witness. So the first option is, my friend has a definite right as a friend to expect me to testify to the lower figure, or B, he has no right as a friend to expect me to testify to the lower figure, okay? And then what you've got to do is you've got to decide, would you lie for your friend or not? And then here's the data, okay? Your friend has no right to ask you to lie and would not help you in court. You're going to go to prison because this person cannot lie. Switzerland, 97%. Venezuela, 32%. Okay. Poland, where I'm based at this exact second, 64%. So 36% of people would lie to protect their friend in court. Okay. United Kingdom, country of my birth, 91%. So only 9% of people would lie. So anyway, what happened by looking at it in this way is he kind of turned it into a game. And it's this fun game. What would happen? Ethical dilemmas. Okay, and ethical dilemmas are the subject for board games and things. They're great fun. People enjoy just playing them for pleasure. Well, Trompenaars turned ethical dilemmas into cross-cultural tools. And yeah, they're great for teaching with. And there's a couple of TEDx presentations that he's given, and they're lots of fun. They're really good. But my issue is, though, if you're interested, if you want to do more, you've got to pay. This is for businesses only. So again, we've got the same kind of problem. I don't have lots of money as a business owner to go out and buy these tools. So at the end of the day, I don't really remember these, even though they're great stories. What I do remember about Hofstede, though, is a couple of things that are much, much simpler. Okay. And here's one thing that I always remember. Now, this is actually Trompenaars stole this a little bit. This originates in 1936 from Lewin and his Life Spaces. Okay, and he did something, and actually this is the earliest record of anything cross-cultural that I've got, by the way. And what he did was he drew a picture, and he drew a picture of two circles. Okay, and the outer circle represents public space, the inner circle represents private space. And what you can do is you can see that there are vastly different sizes of inner circle. In one, it's very small, the private space. So it's described as easy for a friend to enter into your life, okay, into your public space. You meet them in a pub, but very hard for them to go into your very private space. That's not going to happen. Okay, the next one here is public space is very small, okay, but private space is very large. So here it's hard for a new friend to enter into your life. But if they do enter into your life, then expect them to share everything with you. Now, Hofstede turned this into one of his dimensions called specific or diffuse. And this is now peach and coconut, which I always remember. Okay, so the peach is soft on the outside, hard in the center. The coconut is hard on the outside and milky and smooth on the center. Okay, and here we go. We've got some of Trompenaars' figures on the peach and coconut scale. So we can see that the US is incredibly peachy and China is incredibly coconutty. Okay, and this is a great one. This is the thing when I was a regular trainer that people would always remember and take away. Peach and coconut, as simple as that. Okay, and here we've got some details on how people interpret people, how peaches interpret coconuts and coconuts interpret peaches. Okay, so an American person to someone from China appears to be opinionated, providing irrelevant details, frequently arguing, overconfident. A Chinese person to someone from the US appears to be lacking substance, passively agreeing, uncertain, ambiguous. Okay. And finally, what I'm going to finish off on with Trompenaars is a businessman, okay? And he's taken many contracts for many different companies, including advertising contracts. And this is the famous HSBC advertising campaign from 2007, okay? In which, as you can see, HSBC, the world's local bank. And here we go. The more you look at the world, the more you realize people's different values. Beauty, beauty, beauty. Okay. So these are really famous, and all cross-cultural trainers know about these. In many ways, I think this is the moment that cross-cultural skills actually reached the biggest audience through these adverts. And people really notice them. Here we go. The more you look at the world, the more you realize how people value things differently. Decor, souvenir, place of prayer. Okay. So there you go. Right. So I'm going to start wrapping up. Okay. And we've been looking at, for theorists, we've been looking at their tools. We've been looking at their applications. Okay, and I've told you a little bit about my experiences with them and what I found useful. Now, in conclusion, what can we say? Hang on, I'm going to stop sharing my screen for this. Right, what can we say? One thing that I find frustrating is that potentially these tools are incredibly valuable. Okay, we're dealing with things like mediating, working across cultures. Okay, and yet, in order to keep them going, in order to fund them, nearly all of them have had to fit into a business model in which it's businesses that are paying for them. Okay, whether that's a paid mobile application, whether that's company trainings with Lewis, luxury weekends away, or whether that's expensive subscriptions to be able to use the tools. Okay, when all these came out, okay, and we're talking about really the 1990s, okay, they all got monetized in this specific way. They all went into the hands of businesses, okay, and businesses realized that there was competitive advantage to be gained from understanding cross-cultural skills and having cross-cultural tools. And they were prepared to invest and they were prepared to pay. So these were the people that used them, okay? And really, I don't know, I think this was bad in many ways, because it meant that they weren't made available to everyone. Okay, Hofstede clicked with academia and they were all talking about it and writing there. But apart from that, people didn't know about this subject. They didn't really know what intercultural skills was. They thought that an interculturalist was somebody that was good at diplomacy or multiple languages or something, where in fact there was this whole subject and all this research and these models and these tools that could be used. So the subject existed, businesses profited from it. At a very minor level, it entered into universities within other departments, psychology, other social sciences, okay? And let's go forward a bit, and now we've got the digital revolution hitting. Okay, now things could have happened. These tools could have been made available for free, but that they weren't. They've always remained subscription. The research off of them has been used by businesses, and the world is a bit different now. In many ways, knowing about these tools helped me enormously for what is happening at present, because we live in a different time now and there's different rules to the game now. And as we know, in many countries all around the world, it's not getting more global, it's not getting more cross-cultural. There's actually movements to push it in the other direction. And these have originated out of the social platforms, okay, and out of data collection on the social platforms. Because profiling, personal profiling, which is what this is all about, and then using the details gained on people through personal profiling, supposedly to help multiculturalism, cross-culturalism, improve relations. At the moment, it hasn't actually worked that way, and it's not working that way. Because as we all know, we now live in a time in which we found out that, I don't know, like 300 million Facebook profiles were hacked. The cultural information was stolen. This was then put over to people that were able to create cross-cultural tools that they were able to use to model and predict people's behaviours, that were then sold as election tools, okay? And this data collection, this figuring out cross-cultural differences, okay, it has now come to the surface and it's massively important. But at the moment, I'm very sorry to say that the idea with the people that got hold of this information first was to initiate divide and conquer political schemes in countries. They didn't use cross-cultural tools to help educate people to be mediators. They actually used them to stir up dividing points in societies. they use them for the opposite purpose. So anyway, again, that's another subject. Let's bring this back and let's end this. This is Multilingual Family Clubs, okay? And I would just like to say that I'm very happy to be talking about cross-cultural skills and cross-cultural tools for this purpose, especially when at present these cultural tools really have been hijacked for other purposes. It says on the website that the Multilingual Clubs project is targeted at preserving languages and cultures of immigrants living in the EU and promoting multiculturalism in European society, raising awareness of multiculturalism among parents as well as education institutions. And I would just like to finish off on a personal view, which is that the greatest use of cross-cultural tools is for de-escalation of cultural differences. It is not for escalation of cultural differences. Okay. Now, these tools can be used to educate people for tolerance, to become mediators, to be able to sustain cross-cultural relationships, both personal and business. Okay. They can really help reduce conflict. Okay. But what we have learned today by looking at all these original materials is that they are complicated. They take a lot of memory and a lot of studies to hold these, and if you don't use them all the time, you quickly forget them. Really, myself, I remember only a few things. I remember peach and coconut. I remember mediators. Okay, I remember culture clusters. And all of these are the most simplified visual forms of these cross-cultural tools. So that's how I would like to finish off this webinar, with the suggestion that this is vitally important to start using cross-cultural tools for de-escalating cultural difference, okay? And it's vitally important to try to get this in at a young level, okay, in schools, okay, with kids as young as possible. You know, I would like my 10-year-old son to start learning about this at this stage, how to de-escalate cultural differences. But in order to do that, they have to be put in a form which was going to be so simple, okay, that even a kid can understand it. Now, that's what I would like to really suggest as a very worthwhile direction to move forward in, figuring out cross-cultural tools for kids, ways to communicate with kids. So I'm just going to finish off now. I'm going to go back to sharing my screen. These are going to be the last 3 slides. And let's remind ourselves of the simplest things that we've got. So here we go. An idea of mediators. That was as simple as Lewis could get. Here we go. We got the culture clusters, solar systems, towers, clockwork. It's very easy. Peach and coconut. Yeah, that's as simple as we can get. And then finally, we've got this, visual imaging. The more you look at the world, the more you recognize that people value the same things but in different ways. Privilege, sacrifice, role model. And that was the HSBC parenting advertisement. So, okay, so that's it for this webinar. Thank you very much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed the introduction to these 4 theorists and these models, and I hope you can remember some of the simpler images to take away with you that you can apply in your everyday life. And good luck with trying to come up with new materials to introduce children. Thank you.